Alright, so What If dropped episode 3, and basically, this episode is basically what if the Avengers died? Or we're being like sought out and killed, which it's a decent concept, but I think the issue with this story is who's the killer, which I'm gonna spoil it. It's Hank Pym. Now, we know that in the normal MCU timeline that Hank Pym doesn't like Shield and that stuff. And we don't really get a sense of why. And so it makes sense if you're going off comic Hank Pym, which comic Hank Pym, if you don't know, is Ant-Man in the comics. And he was the original Ant-Man, and he was the original first Avenger, actually, I believe, at one point. I don't know. I don't really read the comics too much, but that's what I understand about it. So him not liking Shield for them taking his place as the first Avenger is like, oh, well, that makes sense because, yeah. So he kills the Avengers, and it's kind of like, I don't really understand the conflict here because, it wasn't set up in this episode or in the Marvel Universe that Hank Pym would want to kill the Avengers. I get it's a different timeline, but what I mean, is that he's trying to kill the Avengers for something that, it's not really explained. It was never truly, majorly explained why Hank Pym hates S.H.I.E.L.D. and that kind of stuff. It's not really explained, so it's just an awkward, clunky plot point. And also, Scarlett Johansson's not voicing Black Widow, and it was a very noticeable difference. And also her being the main character of any episode is going to piss me off because I hate that character. I like the Black Widow movie, but that's because most of the Black Widow movie wasn't focused on her because she's a bad character. She doesn't do anything besides tell snarky one-liners and just be annoying. She's not a well-written good character who has good lines or anything, and it's really irritating. And then also I felt like the Avengers' deaths weren't really treated with the gravitas that they probably should have been on the universe, because the reality is that, for that to happen, the universe has to be in major peril. Obviously, Loki came down earlier because Thor died, but there were some changes in the timeline, but still, it's I don't know. I think that's the issue with these stories. In a comic, you can go as long as you want. You can be as long as you want. But these cannot. They can't be as long as they want because they have to be 30-something minutes. It's why don't you just make these things an hour? Every other MCU show is over an hour with its, or not over an hour, but about an hour with its episode lengths. And it really works out in those shows' favors, where here it really screws with them because you're cramming so much story and you can't even develop that story. And so it leads to me being not engaged in the story at all. And I think that's a big issue with this series. But it wasn't a bad episode. I enjoyed it. I just felt like certain plot points need to be better developed within this episode, and they unfortunately were not.